Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we are continuing our journey through the Panchakosha, the 5 sheaths, and we are in the discussion of the Manomaya Kosha, the mental sheath, which creates the distinctions of things. It is all the values I have of the world. Let me fix this. So I like to use the example if I'm out at Ocean Beach and I'm looking out at the ocean and I see something white, direct sense perception. Then the intellect comes in. What is it? It endeavors to determine the thatness, the suchness of it. Ah, it's a buoy. Then the mind comes in. Oh, that's a funny looking buoy. I like the buoys I used to see in San Pedro better. That's mind coming in with evaluation, with memory, calling it good, calling it bad, pleasurable, ugly, etc. The mind is the world, and the world is the mind for you and me. The phenomenal world created by Ishvara, created by the Lord, is inherently neutral. It has no value, good or bad, right or wrong. It is my mind that superimposes that on it. Any thoughts on this? All right, so we're on verse 170, is that correct?
Yes.
Would you help us out, please, Ganesh?
Sure. Swapnirthashunye srijati svashaktya bhoktradi vishvam mana eva sarvam tathaiva jagrat apino visheshah tat sarvametat manaso vidrimbhatam. Sorry, go ahead.
Mark, gonna do the English?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the dream state, even though there is no contact with the outside world, the mind alone projects the entire dream universe of enjoyer and so on. Similarly, the waking state is no different. All this, the world of pluralistic phenomena, is but a projection of the mind.
Yes. So here is one of the most important and to some people outrageous statements of the scriptures. So, what is the difference between the waking state and the dream state? Well, the dream state is contained within my individual mind. My dreams are different than Wendy's, which are different than, who are you? Mike. But in the dream state, what does my mind project? It creates a dream body, an instrument for experience. That becomes a locus of perception. I peep out at the dream world from the dream body. Sometimes I have kind of a higher view. I watch that dream body, but most of the time I feel like I'm in the dream body, and there's a dream ego, there's a dream Jim, and a phenomenal world that seems separate from me out there, thoughts and feelings inside. What's the difference between the dream state and the waking state? Not much. Now listen very carefully. There's a philosophical notion, a psychological notion called solipsism. Some Western metaphysical traditions devolve into solipsism. Solipsism says my ego is real and I'm creating the whole phenomenal world. Why am I yelling at myself through my boss? Why am I angry at myself through the people on the subway, etc.? There's a partial truth to this. Vedanta is not solipsistic. So, if Wendy gets hit by a bus, the universe does not disappear. She, as an ego, is not projecting the whole universe. Although the whole universe is projected by the infinite, it is imagined in the same way the dream is. I always say you are the god of your dream. If you understand how a dream comes about, microcosm, you'll understand macrocosm, how the universal state is carried out. Now, the individual egos were characters in the Lord's dream. Just like I can have a dream about people. So Ishvara dreams all of this, including you and me. In Hebrew scripture, it says, God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God created he them. Remember that one, Mike?
Yeah.
What does it mean? It doesn't mean that God has a head, 2 arms, 2 legs, etc. What is the nature of God? God is consciousness. And how does the world come about? Sankalpena, by means of sankalpa, by means of imagination. You and I create our own little zoo in the same way. We are made in the image and likeness of God. Meaning, to an enormous degree, We create our experience of our reality. Fascinating. So we have a lot more freedom, as it were. So what happens? God answers every prayer, yes. And if your constant thought life is, it's a terrible world, nobody loves me, I'm alone, be afraid, it's scary out there, God goes, yes. So we see that world. And if, on the other hand, deep, deep inside of your mind is, I live and move and have my being in God. Or even better, the self in me is God. All this is God. Then the world shows up for us in a very different. So the implication here in the beginning, we're concerned a lot with our relationship with our thoughts and feelings. I am not my feelings. I am not my thoughts. But we also want to begin to pay attention to the content of our thoughts and feelings. So if you or I spend the whole morning ruminating over the people we resent, regretting things from the past, don't complain if your life shows up in a troublesome way. So, for example, in the 12-step traditions, one of the techniques that we're given is do a gratitude list every day. Write down 10 things for which we're grateful. Why do you think we should do that?
To change our mind.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, we begin to see the world differently. Now, it's usually at this point I introduce us to the law of sankalpa. Sankalpa is a very difficult word to translate. It means wish, will, thought, intention. It is the process whereby a mental image becomes grossified and shows up in what we call the material world. God does not create the world the way a potter creates a pot. God, as it were, imagines the world, dreams the world. So here is the law of sankalpa, the law of the third eye. It's like a miner's lamp or the light you have on your bicycle helmet. Whatever we look at, we're going to think about. Whatever we look at repeatedly, we will think about repeatedly. Repeated thought becomes habituated thought. Habituated thought sinks into the unconscious, then outpictures as the law of my life. Whatever we look at, we think about. What we look at repeatedly, we think about repeatedly. Repeated thought becomes habituated thought. Habituated thought sinks into the unconscious. The thought content of my unconscious determines what I see. It becomes the law of my life. So, where do we have some freedom? Choose. One of my favorite mystics is an American by the name of Emma Curtis Hopkins. And she talked about keeping the high watch. Ever behold the divinity beholding you. But if you keep your eyes on dust, dust you will become, she says. She has very purple Victorian prose. It's the law of Sankalpa. Why? Because the content of my mind outpictures as my life. Ramana Maharshi would explain this principle this way. The self-consciousness is like the lamp in the movie projector. The mind is like the film. The images on the film are my thoughts, feelings, impressions. The images on the screen is my life, my world that I see. So we need to make a distinction between an opinion, surface thought, and a deeply rooted belief. How do I know what my belief systems are? Guess what the answer is?
Look at your life.
Take a look at your life. You meet one asshole in the day, bad luck. You meet two assholes in the day, coincidence. You meet three assholes in the day, guess who's the asshole? We don't get what we want. We don't even get what we need in the end. We get the inevitable results of the force of the past that we've programmed into the unconscious over lifetimes. Now, Swamiji always used to say the way to heal the mind is to get out of the mind. What does this mean? First of all, we need to smash the idea that there's a world out there that's making me feel such and such and so and so. It's an illusion. When I react to the world, it's in my mind. It's the force of the past maturing. It determines how I see the world. It's as if we had glasses with colors in them. We can't see the world that Ishvara has created by his imagination. If I've got blue glasses, everything is blue. If I've got red glasses, everything is red. That's all I can see. The glasses that I'm wearing, it's my mind. I'm thinking of a very famous story about this couple. And this guy's a doctor. And when he married his wife, he saw her potential and how creative, and caring, and kind she was. The more he saw that in her, the more she blossomed. But then as the marriage went on, he got caught up in drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. And he began to only see her flaws and told her about it. The more he saw her flaws, the more she withered. The world is the mind, and the mind is the world. The invitation here is don't believe your mind. Don't assume your mind is delivering truth to you. Your mind is delivering opinions, judgments. You get rid of all your judgments, you cannot see a world. And we know the mind is the world because we prove it every night we go to sleep. When the mind is folded up in deep sleep, what kind of world do you see? Nothing. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
सुषुप्तिकाले मनसि प्रलीने नैवास्ति किञ्चित् सकलप्रसिद्धेः Don't know what letter this is on the print.
Take it.
It's Brato.
Atto.
Ato, okay. Ato bhalakalpita eva pumsa samsara etasya navastutosti.
In deep sleep, the mind is reduced to its causal state, and nothing perceivable exists, as is proved by the universal experience of all people. Therefore, man's world of change is just the creation of his own mind and has no objective reality.
Yes. All I can see in the world is the projection of my mind. Now, let's subtleize this a little bit. Again, Vedanta is not solipsistic. When Mike goes to sleep, the world for him disappears. The rest of the world keeps going. Because the macrocosm is projecting that. But I cannot see the world at all apart from the projections of my mind. So the invitation here is to know that. Therefore, to not take my own mind so damn seriously. Now, this absolutely begins to simplify our relationships. How many of us are plagued by the need to be right? If you know there's no right, then all you're identified and attached to is a stupid ass opinion. Then you have a much greater chance of being able to get off those positions. Practice. You may be right. That's an interesting opinion. I'll take a look at that. Maybe you're right. Look at that. Practice letting go of our deeply rooted belief. My view of the world is true. Ordinary people confuse their opinion with the truth. The yogi understands only the self is true. All knowable phenomena, gross and subtle, without exception, is mind. Any thoughts on this? Don't take yourself so damn seriously. A wonderful mantra. I cannot think a real thought, including the one I just thought it. To take on the practice of not believing our own mind. Then the whole nature of the world and God turns upside down. Many of us, when we begin this work, we think we can know the universe. That's a table. This is a chair. So-and-so's an idiot. They're doing it wrong. I know this. God's a mystery. And it's the other way around. Who is God? God's yourself, the self. It's the only thing you will ever know for sure. Are you? Yes? You sure? You sure you're sure? Are you?
Yes.
Yeah. That's the only thing you will ever know with certainty. Everything else is quite mysterious. And the yogi learns to be comfortable with an awesome, mysterious, spontaneous world. Next verse.
वायुना नीयते मेघः पुनस्तेनैव नीयते मनसा कल्प्यते बन्धो मोक्षस्ते नैव कल्प्यते. Clouds are brought in by the wind and again driven away by the same agency. Oh, sorry. That's the wrong commentary. My bad.
The wind
Go ahead, Mark.
the wind gathers the clouds together, and the wind itself scatters them. So too, the mind is responsible for bondage and also for liberation.
So, this is a very important point. Does the self get liberated? Does the self get realized?
Self already is.
The self is already liberated. The only real self-knowledge you already have. So bondage and liberation, as we think of it in the scriptures, occurs to the mind. What is my bondage? Nothing more than the deeply rooted conviction in my mind, because of spiritual ignorance, that I'm bound, meaning I'm a person. I'm my body, and I have a crappy life, and this makes me unhappy, and that makes me afraid. And I only have a little bit of joy because what I really like is not available. There is no other bondage than that mental state. It's like a deep hypnotism. There is no other liberation than the deeply rooted conviction in the mind, based on direct experience. Not that I'm a Mahatma, I'm enlightened, touch my feet. But that, oh, I'm not a person. I never was. I'm in that space of consciousness. I just didn't know it. True story. Watching Antiques Roadshow. Any of you like Antiques Roadshow? I love Antiques Roadshow. So this lady, older woman, brings this brooch to the Antiques Roadshow. And she knew it was an antique. She thought it was Victorian. And she had been told by an appraiser that it was costume jewelry. It had belonged to her grandmother. She wanted to know if it was worth anything. She brings it to the Antiques Roadshow. She just kept it in the drawer with her socks and stuff like that. Piece of costume jewelry, she thought. She didn't wear it too frequently. It had even sentiment because it had belonged to her grandmother. So the fellow at the Antique Roadshow says, well, you are right. It is Victorian. It was made by such and so jeweler in France. And this is a star sapphire. Whoa. And it's set in platinum. And these are diamond chips all the way around it. It's not worth $250. This is, I can't remember the price. I'm just going to make this up, $65,000. This thing. She goes, oh my God, I keep it in my sock drawer. Now, did the brooch change in any way? Did it?
No.
No. But her knowledge of what it was changed everything. She did not discount it anymore. She knew it had value and it could bring her greater joy. So also, there is a story in Yoga Vasishta about a fellow who's out digging in his field and he finds the Chinta money. Money is a jewel. It's usually translated as the wish-fulfilling gem. This is a gem that will satisfy all your desires. But not knowing what it is, he discards it and then continues to dig and finds pieces of broken colored glass, which he thinks, oh, these are kind of pretty, and he takes them. So also, you and I are possessors of the Chintamani, the wish fulfilling gem, which is the self. But we disregard it because we do not know its value. And instead, go after cheap thrills, people, places, things, and conditions, ignoring the pearl of great price, as Jesus called it. Both bondage and liberation occur to the mind. The self is ever free. This is not an ontological problem. Ontology is the study of being. So, for example, Mike here is a former religious, he was a monk, but priests are told that they are changed ontologically when they're ordained. They're a different being. Self-realization does not change us ontologically. We do not get a new self, a better self, a bigger self. It is an epistemological problem. Epistemology is the study of knowing. My problem is in my mind. Because of spiritual ignorance, I think I'm the body. Self-realization teaches me, oh, I'm not the body. I'm not the mind. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Chidananda Rupam, I'm of the form of bliss, consciousness. Shivoham, I am Shiva, auspiciousness. The word the scriptures use for this aha, this awakening, kratya vijnana, recognition. It's when the mind goes, oh, where did this ego go? This jiva, this individual self, it's gone. It was here a minute ago. I was convinced I was a person, but I'm not. Again, it's like hypnotism. If we're hypnotized by a stage magician to think we're a chicken, run around the stage, wah, 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 wah. Everybody's laughing. He claps his hands and you wake up. Were you ever a chicken? No. Oh, that was so weird. I really thought I was a chicken. So weird. I think I'm my body. I think I'm a person. Weird. It's an illusion. It's a delusion created by the mind. Next verse.
देहादि सर्वविषये परिकल्प्य रागं बध्नाति तेन पुरुषं पशुवद्गुणेन वैरस्यमत्र विषवत् सुविधाय पश्चादेनं विमोचयति तन्मन एव बन्धात्.
The mind causes man's attachment for the body and the sense objects. These attachments bind him like an animal that is bound by ropes. Thereafter, the same mind creates distaste for the very same sense objects, as though they were poison, and liberates man from his bondage.
Yes. So when I live life as a bhogi, B-H-O-G-I, a bhogi practices bhoga, enjoyment. This is a person whose view of the world is, I want to be happy. And the way to be happy is to satisfy as many desires as possible and to avoid miseries. The end result is more attachment, more compulsion. And the stronger the attachment, the more my values start to slip. I lie, cheat, steal, manipulate to get what I want. And I'm plagued by shame and guilt. And I need to deaden those feelings. The tyranny goes on and on and on. A yogi is one who practices yoga, union. A yogi also wants happiness, but lives life in a way that reduces the number of compulsions, cravings, desires entertained. How? Through a steady observation of the fundamental defects of the world. We start with this. What does it feel like to want something you don't have? Or the flip side, I want to get rid of something I don't like that I'm stuck with. Or I call the neurotic form, I have what I want, but I'm afraid I'm going to lose it, so I can't enjoy it. Yoga says, can you find any other kind of suffering? For now, let's put physical pain on the shelf. People don't shoot themselves, become heroin addicts, usually because of physical pain. It's because the mind tyrannizes us. Desire and object of desire become one. I get a momentary respite, a little relief, because I'm plagued by low-grade discontent all the time when I'm in the state of ego. It sucks. Don't believe me? Look at your life. And once I begin to understand what's the cause of the discontent, what's the cause of the restlessness, they are spiritual hangovers. Friday night, I go out with some friends, I drink cheap champagne. I wake up Saturday morning with a headache. A little late at that point. Why do you have a headache? Because I drank cheap champagne the night before. I go out and I indiscriminately revel with the objects of the senses, meaning I have chintya, after the fact rumination. That made me so happy. That's just terrible. And I do this over and over again. And it leaves a vasana in my mind. And the next day, no blame. I'm going to sit and meditate. I can't seem to sit still. What's going on with my mind? Any of you have that state? It's a spiritual hangover. It is the result of yesterday's indiscriminate revelry with the objects of the senses. Now, the stupid person says, oh, I've got a headache. Why don't I have a Bloody Mary? What does that do? Starts a cycle. The beer in the afternoon, and I'll save the vodka for later. What do you and I do? Oh, I don't want to meditate today. I'm just not in the mood. Get on the phone. All the things we do. Thinking. This is giving me a little relief, little release. From what? From that low grade discontent and restlessness. Where does that come from? So once I can begin to identify what the problem is and what its cause is, I develop the desire to be free from desire. This is called vairagya, mature dispassion. There is no more fruitful meditation than really understanding that life, the way most of us live it, is dukkha, suffering. The truth of suffering, the Buddha called it dukkha satya. What's its cause? Samudhara satya. The truth of its arising of suffering. It is kama, craving. It is raga, passion for things. Dvesha, aversion. Spriha, longing. I can't remember the Sanskrit. Is it Nirodha Satya, the truth of the removal of suffering? For most people, I get it in two places. When I satisfy a desire, and I go to sleep. But then the Buddha said, is it possible to be permanently free from the tyranny of craving? He said, yes. Varga Satya, the truth of the path. He would say, sadhana. Any questions about this? Meditation, study of scripture is not some technique so you can get more money, get a better boyfriend or girlfriend, a larger house, a better car. The paradox is, because you're beginning to develop some single pointedness of mind, you actually may get some of those things. What we want to develop is samadrishta, this equality of vision. The yogi's mind is the same in heat and cold, all the stuff in the physical world. Pleasure and suffering, conducive and non-conducive environments, honor and dishonor, the conclusions of the intellect. Stand back. Get out of the mind. Any questions on this? Again, the world itself is not evil. It's not bad. When Shankara talks about a distaste for worldly enjoyments, he's not saying that the world is an evil, bad place. The world is essentially neutral. It just is. I have attachments and aversions. That's what needs to be removed. Next verse.
तस्मान्मनः कारणमस्य जन्तुः बन्धस्य मोक्षस्य च वा विधाने बन्धस्य हेतुर्मलिनं रजोगुणैः मोक्षस्य शुद्धं विरजस्तमस्कम्.
Therefore, the mind is the cause for both liberation as well as bondage. When it is blemished with the effects of rajas, it causes bondage. When it is free from the rajas and tamas qualities, it paves the way to liberation.
So, what is the main property of tamas? Ignorance. Avarana Shakti, veiling power. The non-apprehension of myself and the subsequent non-apprehension of the world as it really is. Then comes Rajas, whose inherent property is Vikshepa Shakti, projecting power. What does the mind project? I'm a person. The world is separate from me and is inherently joy-giving and misery-producing. Let's go! Gimme, 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 gimme. More, better, different. More, better, different. That's my suffering. A predominantly sattvic mind is the result of cultivating the qualities of a fit student. Viveka, Vairagya, Shamariguna, Mumukshutva, Bhakti. This allows the mind to be able to easily turn within. If you have a head full of Vedanta and a heart full of desires, it's a very, very painful state. Sometimes I'll say, don't worry about the Vedanta. Just set it aside for now. Go after the world and enjoy. Party. Don't worry. You'll be kicked in the teeth by the world. And when you're really sick and tired of being sick and tired, come home. Some of us cannot let go of the world through insight. We have to let go of the world by being kicked in the teeth. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
As long as the mind holds out, oh, I just have the wrong boyfriend, the wrong girlfriend. It's the wrong job. It's the wrong house. I'm in the wrong place. It's out there. No hope. No hope of freedom. All right, next verse.
Jim, is there any relevance to the fact that it says it only talks about Rajas leading to bondage, but then it talks about Rajas and Tamas not being present leading to liberation?
Yes, actually, pure tamas doesn't hurt at all. There is no suffering in pure tamas. Pure tamas is deep sleep. So the mind has to be active and projecting with desires for us to be feeling the bondage, feeling the pain and the suffering. That's my interpretation of it.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
All right, next verse. Did you have more questions, Ganesh?
No, I was just going to start reading the next verse.
Okay.
Vivekavairagya गुणातिरेकाच्छुदत्वमासाद्य मनोविमुक्त्यै भवत्यतो बुद्धिमतो मुमुक्षोस्ताभ्यां दृढाभ्यां भवितव्यमग्ने.
When the mind has been made pure due to a predominance of discrimination and dispassion, it turns towards liberation. These two must be strengthened by one who is an intelligent seeker of liberation.
So, Brahman alone is real, the phenomenal world is mithya. This is known as discrimination between the real and the unreal. Nitya, Nitya Viveka. The eternal and the non-eternal. In the beginning, some teachers define Nitya as conditioned reality. Consciousness conditioned by name and form. Mithya literally means lie. It's really a much deeper idea. Brahman alone is real. That's what delivers the goods. Phenomenal world is like a hologram. It's like a rainbow. Pretty, but nothing substantial there. Oh, but such and such and so and so. It feels so good. No, you're just getting a taste of your own self-picture. That's all it is. Viveka, discriminate between the self and the not self, between the real and the unreal. Vairagya, that desire, we don't accomplish it overnight, to give up attachment to all experiences gained through the senses, and all ideas of self, from the body up to and including the form of Brahma, the creator, meaning I'm a very powerful being. These are the two wings of the bird, the Hansa, that takes us on the flight to the infinite. We need both. I used to raise chickens as a kid. You didn't want the chickens to fly away. You didn't clip both their wings. You only had to clip one of them. They can't fly with only one wing. You didn't hurt them. The wings just like getting a haircut. We need both. Continuous discrimination. The desire to let go, let go, let go, let go. Attachment to the world and identification with any sense of being a person. If I feel like a person, I'm deluded. Drop it. Who am I? Discriminate. Viveka builds the discrimination. The Viveka builds the dispassion. The dispassion builds more discrimination. Discrimination builds more dispassion. They work for each other. Then the mind easily begins to turn towards the infinite. If, on the other hand, you go revel with the world and you forget what the scriptures have said, I like to say, knock yourself out. We will gladly return your suffering to you. Here, you may have it back. Next verse.
Mano nama mahavyagro vishayaranya bhumishu charat yatra na gachantu sadhavo ye mumukshavaha.
A huge tiger called mind prowls in the thick jungles of sense pleasures. Let not those virtuous people who have a deep aspiration for liberation ever wander therein.
So, I think it was Paramahansa Yogananda who said, ashrams are for weak lovers of the Lord. The beauty of an ashram or a monastic community is it separates us to some degree from the triggering of our vasanas by the phenomenal world. And there are some people who say you have to take sannyas, you have to become an ascetic in order to attain self-realization. That's not so. We know that all of the rishis, the writers of the Upanishads, the Vedas, were all householders. Now, if you are called to the life of a monastic, believe me, it's a lot simpler. But even if we spend some time in an ashram or a monastery, at some point we still interact with the world. You can have just as many resentments against your brother monks or sister nuns, fellow brahmacharis. You can be just as attached to a few belongings as many. What Shankara is saying is the sannyas we need to take, sannyas means renunciation, is an interior experience. Now, for many of us, Life may deliver to us a time to retreat from the world, to do nothing but intense sadhana. When the student is ready, those circumstances manifest. So you have the time to spend hours in meditation. You're not concerned with the job and going out partying on the weekends, etc. You have to be mindful that phony renunciation isn't going to work. We practice renunciation out of insight. I like to say, we are not healed by what we turn from, but by what we turn to. Love God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength. Strive hard to drown the mind and the self, to soak the mind in Brahman. The world will leave you. The world is not evil, but as long as you are continuing to extrovert into the world seriously, I want this, I want that, Shankara will say, at least don't embrace a rotting corpse thinking it's a beautiful bride. At least be conscious, I cannot give this up yet, but I know at some point it has to go. Any thoughts on this point? Live simply. Do your duty in the world. Endeavor to be of service and focus your attention on self. Practice Viveka Vairagyacha, discrimination, dispassion. Meditate. Read the scriptures. Serve. Any thoughts on this? Okay, it's 9. We'll end here. What verse are we on for next week?
177?
Yeah.
177. And how many more in this section on the mind? About half a dozen more? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, Mark, it doesn't say on
It's-
this. Yeah.
Yes, it's hard to say.
Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha.